you run so quickly, you don't even have time to pause and actually think, where am I going to? Because you're like, if I just keep running, eventually I'll be happy. But it's just, it's madness.
Right.
Because you're taking no time to actually reflect on whether you're running in the right direction. Hi everyone. So this week we want to talk to you all about the importance of learning to slow down, and in the context of COVID-19. So Amanda and I have talked about this a little bit for a while, and I've certainly heard some of the influencers that I listen to talk about this topic. But I just want to provide a bit of a disclaimer before we start, which is to say, if you have been directly impacted by COVID-19, I know obviously there's a lot of people hurting in the world right now. This isn't intended in any way to undersell the pain that comes from the pandemic. It's more to just say, if you haven't been affected, and we're two such people that are lucky enough to not have been impacted, touch wood, that life can actually be really eye-opening and different for us all. So we're going to unpack that a little bit more now, but I'll throw to Amanda for the formal introduction.
Yes. So this show is for anyone out there who feels like they've settled for an unfulfilling life, and that's why it's called Settling is Not an Option. Whether you've settled in a relationship, in the work that you do, or in the way that you treat yourself and feel about yourself, we're here to tell you that settling is not an option. If you're liking the show so far, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on Spotify and Amazon Music. And if you're so inclined, you can head on over to Ko-fi, and there will be a link in the description for the audio or video where you can head over to Ko-fi and donate as little as $1 to us to keep things going and to help us maybe get some new audio or lighting equipment. And you can also reach us at cheerstoNotSettling@gmail.com. So that's the end of our plug in our formal introduction. So next, I will go ahead and introduce the 3 topics that we're going to work to hit this week. And if you haven't seen the last couple of shows, we've been trying something new where we've been timing each segment and trying to make each one 15 minutes. So bear with us, because I won't say Adam, I'm not always very good at with my timers. So bear with us.
I'll be the timer person today. There you go.
All right. So the 3 topics that we are going to hit are: is slowing down the best way to find happiness? The second one is nature trying to restore balance through COVID-19? And the third one, why do we wait until disaster hits to wake up? So with that being said, I'll turn it back over to Adam. And Adam, you want to tell us if you can find happiness through slowing down or not?
Yeah, for sure. I'll just hit the timer. There we go.
All right.
Okay. So the way I kind of want to introduce this topic is, I think one of the biggest lies that society has told us is that the more you do and the busier you are, the more likely you are to find happiness. And I think that's such a rare case where that actually happens. I think slowing down is much more likely to make you happy.
Sure.
Because you see what's happening around you. Like, you actually have the moments to sit back and see what's happening. So, obviously one of the first things that I talked about in my story of not settling was leaving a job that was really toxic and not good for me. And one of the defining moments of that was, as a branch manager, our branch opened at 9:30 every day. Mm-hmm. And I still had to, as the branch manager, be in there an hour early to set up and make sure all the cash and everything was checked. And basically, I'd almost want to get there even earlier than that too, so that I could check my emails, get myself ready for the day, all the stuff that you do. But what would happen is, on specific days, I would have Rose in the morning, who's my daughter, if you guys don't know, and I would have to get out of bed absolutely early as, get her ready, rush around the house. We'd have to scoff down our breakfast really quickly, and then I'd have to rush her to daycare before driving over the bridge to get to the branch. Okay. And every morning that I did that, I just felt like my priorities were all wrong. I was constantly thinking, Rose is only young and she's only going to be this age for so long. Yet I'm basically just rushing through these moments with her. We're not pausing to just enjoy some time together. Mm-hmm. And just over time, that became a bigger and bigger thing, and just caused me to say, no, I don't want to do this. I want this time with my daughter. So
Right.
that wasn't the only reason why I left, but it was a very big component. So, and since then, like I've been going on a lot more walks and things like that. And there is just one walk that I really like going on because it just continues to reinforce for me why I made the decision to leave that job. And it's the bridge that I drive over to get to work every day is the Tasman Bridge, and it's the biggest bridge that connects the two shores together.
Okay.
And there's always a million cars driving across there. But looking at that bridge, I always look at the cars and think, are all those people just rushing to work, rushing about? And I almost, feel sorry for them because I know how easy it is to get caught in the rat race. And I'm like, I just wish you guys could snap out of it and realize that's not the best way to live, in my opinion. And who knows, maybe they're driving to the ice cream shop or something and they're,
right.
Maybe
Exactly.
they're going to have a great time.
Maybe they know something you don't know, but
maybe they know something else. But yeah, but I do feel that that's just for me, just a really important metaphor of just the madness of just running without really having a proper destination.
Right. Well, that's the key point, I think, is that you're running, you don't even know what you're running toward. Is that where you kind of ended up?
Yeah, because you run so quickly, you don't even have time to pause and actually think, where am I going to? Because you're like, if I just keep running, eventually I'll be happy. But it's just, it's madness. Right. Because you're taking no time to actually reflect on whether you're running in the right direction. Like you really need to take time to pause, I think. And like, I think the benefits of slowing down is you do actually get to see things. Like what I try and challenge myself to do now is just when I'm in the car, turn off all the music, turn off the podcasts, and just be in the car just for that car ride home and just see what I can see and just look around. And so yesterday, for example.
But you're also keeping your eyes on the road, right?
Yeah, true. Okay. Yes.
Like I can just see you driving and you're just looking around.
I do highly recommend that when you're driving that you keep your eyes on the road.
Yes.
It's more say when I'm stopped at the lights.
There we go. Okay.
When I've got an opportunity to look around. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, we don't want people, all of our listeners end up in car accidents here.
Yeah, Adam told me to just don't pay attention to the road, just look at the trees, and I hit someone. Yeah, no, don't do that. But yesterday, by just driving home, I saw a man walking down the street who had one arm, and that could just be something you just look at and you don't think about again. But it made me actually start to have a moment to think, geez, I'm grateful that I've got two arms,
right?
And that could sound absurd, but again, it's just the power of appreciating what you've got. Like, we're healthy enough to have all four of our limbs, and how amazing is the sensation of touch and all those things that we take for granted, because again, we're running so quickly, we just don't pause to go, wow, this is pretty amazing, the world that we're living in. We're just so busy. So but I'm keen to get your thoughts on that. Do you agree?
I agree 100%.
Excellent.
I also think, though, it's one of those things that's really hard to comprehend until you actually do it.
Yes.
Or it seems like it's something that's impossible. Or like before the show, we were talking about how a lot of people, and Adam and I have both been in this position before, so we're not talking down to anybody or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we both been there where you become a slave to your possessions, and you become a slave to, you have to make a certain amount of money. So in order to make a certain amount of money, you have to work at this job, keep working at this job that you don't even know why you're working at it. And you just are on this cycle, continuing this cycle that is just leading you nowhere. And it seems like, it feels to me too, like when you don't know where you're headed, then other people's priorities take over in place of your priorities. And I think that's also why you start living too fast, if that's the right way to say it, or you stop slowing down because you're working on everybody else's priorities.
Yeah.
And like you said, one interesting thing too about checking your email when you got to work in the morning. And that's something I've been trying to do is not, well, I've been doing pretty good at it, but to not check my email right away in the morning, because right there, all of a sudden, other people are taking over your time. Or you know what I mean? Where now someone else's priority has become your priority.
Yeah.
Well, so-and-so who says they needed this report by 9 o'clock, and this other person is saying, I need this from you and whatever. And now all of a sudden you've just thrown off your whole day. Did you ever find that when you were, where your whole 100%. Day gets thrown off as soon as you get to work?
Yeah. People 100% hijack your day.
That's what I'm trying to say. Hijack your day. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, it's just like every email or every customer or every task, like, I don't know, there's no satisfaction almost in completing those things, because you just do them, and then another 10 things pops up and you kind of like, okay. And like, I don't know about you, like, I think the work that you were doing, I think is probably a lot more impactful, because banking certainly feels a little, no offense to bankers out there. I was one for a long time, but it just doesn't feel as impactful as accounting to me.
Sure.
But, you know, I'd get to the end of the day and I'd be like, what did I actually do today? Really? Yeah. What did I do other than a bunch of transactional things, you know, updating trackers or communicating to my colleagues about, oh, this is how my branch is performing. Doesn't mean anything, really. It's not changing anything.
I see what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, I was thinking, like I just mentioned to Amanda before we started the episode, was like, why we do this? You know, why do we start running with no direction and things like that? And I think it's because as we grow up, we look at our role models, which are usually our parents, you know, or could be significant others, and they're just running around.
Yeah.
And we go, well, they're adults, they're grown up, they know what they're doing. Of course they know what they're doing because they're grown up, but they're probably as lost as a lot of us are, to be honest. So I just think, question it. Don't just think because the role models in your life are running madly that's the way to live. You should question those things and look inward, I think.
Well, and not only that, but it reminds me of the fact that the role models that you are following, say it's your parents or your grandparents or whoever, grew up in a different time. And so it was a lot different for them. Like, they were in careers where they would be in their career for the whole life, a lot of people. And I think a lot of them, too, were satisfied to do that, where things have changed now, and it's very uncommon for people to be in a career for their whole life. It just is very uncommon. And I think employers used to treat their employees better than they do now. I mean, not 100%, but I feel like as technology increases, employees are seen as more of a commodity, or, you know, just treated like another cog in the wheel, or whatever you want to say, just another machine to process information rather than being treated as a human being. Like, well, have you come across that? So you do some research for your PhD about workplace mental health. I mean, has that come up in your research at all? Yeah,
just labor market conditions changing. And so just so many casual contracts, gig workers, as they call them here, and just outsourcing and things like that. And so, like, there's a high prevalence, the research says, in job insecurity, where people are, which is actually almost a stressor that makes people makes people's well-being deteriorate, which leads to mental health issues. So yeah, it's not like it used to be. People used to feel safe, but you know, without that safety, there's all the other ripple effects that impact the rest of your life and can make you sick.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a good point, is even though before maybe your employer didn't treat you that great, like maybe my parents' employer didn't treat them that great, but they were still like guaranteed certain things like pensions, and where, I don't know how it is in Australia, but you know, like here people used to get a pension. So you knew when you retired, you're going to get a certain amount of money no matter what. And now that's pretty much non-existent.
Yeah,
So,
right.
and that's just one example of just the way that things have changed, where people don't feel that security, or they don't feel like their employers have made a commitment to keep
Yeah.
them on.
Yeah. And again, it's like this relentless pursuit of productivity and efficiency. Like what
Yeah,
you were saying about
right.
technology and stuff. I
Mhm.
heard someone the other day just saying, like, the introduction of AI or like phones and all these technological advances we have ultimately is to make lives more productive and efficient.
Yeah,
But the big question I've got to that is, well, what's the point of all this additional time and efficiency if
exactly.
you continue this, crazy pace of life? Like, I heard Greg McKeon, who we spoke about a bit on the show last week.
Yeah,
He specifically said, when you see someone selling something, they're selling something, but then they're also selling the real thing, right? Which is,
okay.
say it's a product that's going to save you time.
Yeah,
The back promise and the thing that draws you in is like all this additional time you have, you get to spend with your children outside, running around, having a great day. And so he said, just question, does you buying that thing actually give you more time with your children and more
right.
time outside? Probably not, because things just balance themselves out and you
Yeah,
just then go, here's an extra hour I've got in the morning to check my emails and do
right.
tasks that really don't matter to me at all. Like, it's absurd.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking about when you started saying that. Is like, I remember when I did work at an accounting firm, a lot of times you get like a new program or a new software program or something that's supposed to save you so much time and blah, blah, blah. And we'd all be thinking this, but it never saved. I mean, that might have saved time, but our
Yeah.
time was still always full. Like
Yeah.
nothing ever really changed. You just filled it with different things.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's almost a bad thing. We're getting to the end of the segment here, but I think that's almost a bad thing too, because you feel expected to do more.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Because you were like, I have this technology, now I should be able to do more. And that's just a crazy cycle, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that, because the time does get filled, because it's like
Yeah,
your boss or whoever goes, hey, we've got this new software. You're going to save all this time and you'll be able to do more, see more clients or whatever.
right.
But then it's also like, hey, but with that additional time you've taken back, we also expect you to do these 10 other things that you couldn't do.
Exactly. Well,
And you're
that's
like,
just
what?
it. It never happens. Never. Anytime that we were thought we were going to save time, it never happened.
Yeah. Yep.
But
No,
did you
well
have any
said.
other thoughts on that before we move on to the next topic?
No, that's perfect timing. That's 15 minutes. Well
Good.
done.
Perfect. All right. So the next topic this is going to be the interesting one.
Yeah.
Is nature trying to restore balance through COVID-19? So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, so I watched this amazing documentary recently called The Biggest Little Farm. Have you seen that before?
No, Biggest Little Farm. Mm-mm.
It's a really nice movie, well, documentary from 2018, which is on Netflix.
Okay.
And it's about this couple that want to kind of create a self-sustaining farm, like
Oh,
a farm
cool.
that's completely in alignment with nature.
Yeah.
And it's actually a really beautiful doco. I highly recommend watching it, because the whole idea, I guess, that it works towards is that when we work completely in harmony with nature and we trust nature, everything just works out.
Yeah.
And, without spoiling the movie, it's just the trial and tribulations of these like people continuing to intervene. When an inconvenience happens, which could be the coyotes start eating the chickens or something in the movie,
Yeah.
they try and intervene, but in basically, say, eradicating one issue, it creates another one, because the whole idea is, these things, in as much as, yes, they might be frustrating in one way, they're also controlling another thing, which could be more problematic.
Right.
So it was just a really beautiful documentary that kind of just demonstrated our obsession with control, and how when we relinquish control, things kind of come into that natural balance.
Yep.
And, I can't help but think that COVID-19 is a perfect example of that,
Mhm.
where, I hate to use this word because it probably sounds quite bad, but we almost need correcting in a way
We do
because
need correcting, yes. Yeah.
our way of living is unsustainable and it's just very selfish. It
Mhm.
is. I heard someone the other day say we think we're at the top of the pyramid. You know,
But we are not.
we're not. You know, it's saying we are so much more important than everything else on this planet. Because and yeah, what I find absurd about it is it's like, you know, we kind of do all this damage to every other creature and thing on this planet
Yeah.
to achieve a purpose which we never actually achieve. You know, this pursuit of happiness and contentment and joy, which we never find because we just run madly and
Right.
without direction. Like, yeah, I just think
Yeah,
it's
or
it's
some
just,
kind of security that you're not, or control that you're never going to have.
yes. So, but yeah, I'm keen for your thoughts on that. What do you
Well,
think
it
about it?
reminds me of something that we talked about before. I don't think we talked about it on the show, but
Yep.
we were talked at one time about how nature just takes over. Like you cannot stop nature. And I mean, you can keep like trimming it back or whatever. Like I'm thinking of my yard. Like we have a pretty, my husband's kind of crazy about keeping the yard up. So it's pretty well manicured. And so I'm thinking about that. But if he stopped mowing it or stopped taking care of it for a few months, like all of a sudden trees would start sprouting up. The grass, nature takes over. So
Yes.
we just have to face facts that we do not have control over what's going on this planet, even though we
Yes.
might think that we do. And I think
Yeah.
that's the key. It seems to me like if you can accept that fact, that you just don't have control, it just makes everything so much easier. And it makes you not want to, I guess, pillage the natural resources that we have. Although, I mean, I'm just as guilty of, I don't pillage it personally, but I know for a fact that all this stuff I have sitting around me, I have because somebody pillaged our natural resources. So, I mean, I'm not sitting here trying to sound like I'm so much better than everybody else or anything, but it is just something to be aware of and to try to change your habits.
Well, I think that's a really good point as well. We're not saints here. We're not perfect.
No,
not
like, even close.
If I look at all the things around me, it's true. Like I'm not living, say, a minimalist life, and
No.
And there would be things that I'm sure I could do differently to make the planet more sustainable and things like that. And I think we get there in due course. So definitely not saying we're perfect pillars of that, but I think the big thing is it's like I think it just keeps tying back to that pace of life. Like COVID literally is an example of where we have like for a lot of us, in these really hard lockdowns, you have nothing else than to sit with yourself a lot of the time. Right. Obviously if you have kids and stuff, like the pace is still pretty quick, but like there is more time there for introspection and to kind of find yourself. Yeah. And I think some people really struggle with that. I think that's why there's been some people that have really struggled because they're like, I don't want to do that. Don't force me to do something that I really don't want to confront. But, I almost throw that question out there, which is the reason people resist that because they're terrified that they're going to have to confront things and actually say, you know what? I am living a life that I don't want to live. I don't like my job. I don't like my relationship. I don't like how I feel about myself and what my priorities are. And that, I think what happens, that awareness then comes with, you need to take action because you'll think, I know that's a problem now. Now I need to do something about it. And people just I don't want to even know about the problem because then I could just keep running.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I've done that myself. Now you say that of certain things where you just ignore it because you don't want to take action on it.
Yeah.
Or you're afraid of what the action is going to be or whatever. No, that's a good point. But going back to the whole point of nature, I mean, whether COVID is natural or not, I mean, there's some speculation on that too, of whether it was designed in some laboratory or whatever. But let's assume that it's natural. It does seem like, and it's taking control. I mean, so that just goes to prove the point even further that nature's going to take control. At the end of the day, nature's always going to take control because so many people just ended up, and I think that's why a lot of people had trouble too, is because their sense of control was completely lost.
Yes.
Even though they didn't really have it to begin with. but it's different when you actually have to face it, that you now have no control over whether you can go to work or not. You don't have control over whether you can go to the grocery store or not. You know, all these things that we just take for granted so much. And I don't know how the closures were there, but there was a point in time here where you could go to the grocery store, but I mean, all other stores were closed. You really couldn't get anything except for essential things. Like groceries, you could go to the pharmacy and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that was really it.
It was
so that's
the same
very limited, you know, from what we were used to.
But it's interesting. Well, because it was the same, like in Tasmania, the state I'm in, luckily we only had, and touch wood again, we luckily only had just a very, I'd almost call it a soft lockdown. Whereas in Melbourne, in the state of Victoria, it was very heavy. Like you could go outside for an hour, you know, all the shops were closed.
For an hour. Wow. An hour. We were encouraged to go outside at least.
Actually, sorry.
Like, go outside to get some exercise.
Yeah, actually, sorry, it was exercise for an hour. So like obviously it's that, and that was pretty intense. When I heard that, I thought, wow. And there were a lot of very unhappy people there.
Yeah.
But, you know, that was a good example of people in the end all came together and said, all right, well, the only way we're going to get rid of this thing now is to do that pain, you know, go through that pain. But, yeah, I completely lost the point I was going to make there.
That's okay. That's never happened to me before or anything. But
it's great, isn't it? You're like,
yeah, I know. But no, other thing, well, if you want me to jump in then. The other thing I was kind of thinking about that was really nice during COVID, during that time period, and as far as slowing down and reconnecting with people. So again, I was fortunate. My work was not impacted because I already work at home. So it was fine. But my desk looks out, or it sits in front of the window that looks out over the street in front of our house. And unbelievable how many people were out walking with their whole family. I mean, I'd see whole families, 5, 6 people, you know, the mom, dad, the kids, sometimes grandparents, because in our neighborhood, it's a long story. But anyways, there's whole families that live in our neighborhood. So sometimes the grandparents would be there. And like, I sit there all the time. I see the same people walk every day. So I know these aren't people who usually go out for walks. And I thought that was really cool.
Yes.
It was too bad that it was the circumstances we were in, but these families were actually finding time to connect, go for a walk, get out in nature, and disconnect from, you know, all their devices and whatever, and all their running around. And I found too, because we tend to be pretty busy. We have 3 kids. They all have activities going on, or used to have activities going on. And so we would be busy pretty much every night of the week. We were going somewhere.
Yeah.
And once that kind of slowed down, you kind of realized how much that was wearing on you.
Yeah.
And not that I would take it back. If they were able to do their activities, we would totally do it again.
Yeah.
but yeah, it just was it was refreshing, I guess, to take a small break. Now, I guess the break has gone on way too long, where it's not really refreshing anymore.
Yeah.
But it was a good reminder to just slow down. And also just to know that things will eventually work themselves out.
Yeah. I think it's a good point with like all the businesses and things that close. And of course, like my heart goes out to any businesses out there that have closed and as a result of this can't reopen. Like I couldn't imagine how tough that would be.
Right.
But you know, it shows you when you scale everything back to just having those essential services, you know, the need to eat or have medicine, you know, if you're sick, like those are essential 100%, you know, but all the other stuff is really just a bonus. You can still enjoy and see life without having all those things, without going to the big fancy indoor playground or without going and watching, you know, like a cricket match or something.
Sure.
Sorry, terrible example for
Americans. No, that's good.
But, you know, like, Do I want to do those things? Yes, 100%. But, can I live without them? Sure. And what are the benefits of living without having those things? Like going in nature, I really think nature has so much to teach you if you just
Right.
stop and you look. There's stuff all around you, I think, constantly. And it'll be interesting to see, when everything
Yeah.
returns to normal, how many people are just going to be like, thank God I can get back to this really busy pace of life,
Yeah.
versus people that won't. Like I heard a stat that said out of a survey in the UK, 40% of people said that they like this change of pace in their
Really?
life. So I thought that was quite a large percentage of people.
Yeah.
But then there is another 60% out there, at least from that survey, that are saying, no, please just let me get back to the busyness. So,
Yeah.
I just
But
think
I'm surprised it's as high as 40. That's pretty inspiring, I think, or encouraging. Yeah. I know, because I've thought that too. And I just have a feeling, once people get busy, it'll be the same again.
Yeah,
Eventually. I mean, people would just go back to what they were doing before. Unfortunately, we don't always learn our lessons very well. And we're going to get to that in our third topic. But,
we will.
But anyways, I won't jump ahead.
But pretty much that's 13 minutes. I've run out of content to say.
Okay, that's cool. So maybe
you
we
can have 2 minutes if you like.
Well, I think I'm good, but I think we both have kind of the same thoughts as far as COVID-19 goes, and again, more just something to reflect on, not anything that we're saying. Like you said, we're not trying to be uncompassionate or whatever to the people who are really suffering from it, but it does give us a moment to just stop and reflect on life and what we want to make of life going forward.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to everything. Like, there's some really horrible, hard situations coming out of this, but there's also some good that you hope that this never happens again. It's unprecedented in our lifetime for something like this. So, if this is the only time that this happens, don't miss all the really important lessons from it.
Yeah.
I think another thing too is to your point about, looking at people in the neighborhood who are going for walks that didn't do that before.
Right.
That also, that's a big thing, like properly connecting with people, because, if you're locked down and you're with your loved ones and stuff, that's an opportunity, I think, to really connect and hear each other, get off the phones and actually sit down and talk and get to know each other, see how each other's feeling. Like, that's another bonus, I think.
Yeah.
Slowing down means you've got more time to really connect with people, important people in your life.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's just
that concludes our second topic.
Yes, that concludes the second topic. So the final topic is, why do we wait until disaster hits to wake up? Or basically, and why do we even sometimes continue doing the old unhelpful things that we did before the disaster hit? So what are your thoughts on that?
That's a tricky one. This is the one I thought would be the hardest, but I was like, I'll throw it out there because it'll be good.
It's a good thing to talk about for sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I have an answer to the question as well, because I do just think, we have a lot of disasters. You think about, like, the crazy tsunami, what was that, 2001, or like the huge earthquake in Christchurch, where I'm originally from in New Zealand, and just all these terrible things that happen. But then it's crazy that, for a certain amount of time, we will adjust, and change to a new norm and have a new set of values and a new way of looking at things. But then it just slowly just kind of eases back into the old ways. Yeah. And everyone's guilty of it. I said to my mum yesterday that, like, an epiphany I had a while ago, which changed my view on everything. And I was walking around just seeing the world differently.
Yeah.
Like a sequence of things happened, I think, like with my studies and just life, that caused me to forget those lessons. And then I kind of got back in the rat race a little bit again. Yeah. And then basically, something will happen again, and then I'll kind of reset and go, oh yeah, I remember what those lessons were. I need to slow down and enjoy life. And so, it's a tricky one. Mm-hmm. Like, I think maybe it's the world we live in. The world is created in such a way that you kind of you get carried away by everything happening in the world, you know. The technology and all the things that we have in our life are designed specifically to suck you back into it, because if we all woke up, then you know, a lot of industries would go out of business. You know,
true. Like, and we don't really want that either, but
no.
No, I know.
But it's a tricky one. I mean, what do you think? Why do you think it takes a disaster, and even after that, we don't fully change?
Right. Well, I have a lot of thoughts on it, but
Good.
I think one thing is, and I guess I'm thinking of disaster too, as more of a personal disaster, like maybe an illness or your loss of your job, or a divorce or something like that.
Yes.
Where that just kind of shakes your whole world, and you know, sometimes you have to like completely start over. But I think, and I read about this when I was going through my divorce, that people cling to, even though that's a painful experience, and you still cling to your own old ways, because that's what you know. That's what you're comfortable with, even though they're not good for you, even though those old ways might cause you a lot of pain, you're comfortable with that pain. So it's almost like we are more afraid of what we don't, or we are so afraid of what we don't know, that we're afraid to find happiness. Is part of that. I can see like it's like a light bulb just went on top of your head. Boop.
Can you, when you edit the video, just put a light bulb there?
Yeah, because I could literally like just see that happening on your face. But so I think it's partly that is that we're just comfortable with what we know. But I also think too, people are afraid of being happy because then they're afraid of losing it. Like it's easier to be miserable because you're not afraid of losing misery, if that makes any sense.
Yes. I feel like you're being the wise old crone today. Sorry to call you that, but that's the archetype, right?
No, I like that. I like that title. But I'm just pausing because I'm enjoying the looks on your face. these little light bulb moments. But no, it really strikes in what I was reading about during my divorce was that because obviously I was very depressed at the time and very anxious and all this stuff. And I kind of had this daily routine I went through, and I was reading about how people kind of get addicted to that routine that they find in that moment of tragedy, and they have a really hard time getting out of it because they become addicted to that routine. And man, I'm actually glad I read that. I think knowing me, I probably would have snapped out of it anyways, but I was glad I read that because I could see that I was starting to get addicted to that. And like you almost get addicted to your own drama, or I don't know. Have you run into that before in your life?
Yes. Like, I mean, it's that, and like, so you finished A New Earth recently. So, and Eckhart Tolle talks about that too, how like with the pain body, how people are like, my identity is my pain. So I don't want to get rid of my pain because then I'm no one, and that scares me.
That's true too, yeah.
That was definitely the part of that book that resonated with me the most, because for a long time, you know, during my marriage and afterwards, probably more afterwards, I just like kept moving into situations that would cause me pain.
Sure.
And like without really kind of knowing why. And like it would just be a lot of moments where I'd be like, why am I doing this? Like this is making me so unhappy and unfulfilled, but I just kept going back and doing them. But then, you know, when you look inwards and stuff, you kind of do realize this is probably because I don't really know who I am, what I want. I'm just, I like the drama, I guess, of it.
Right.
But yeah, it's
a strange thing though, isn't it?
It is a strange thing.
I feel like we all fall into that at some point.
Yeah. Like, and I think you've said this before, like when you got divorced, like it's it is terrifying in those early days, isn't
Yeah.
it? Like
Yeah. Oh
your
yeah.
whole world and identity, because I know you said so much of your identity was built around, looking
Right.
after someone else and meeting their needs.
Right.
Like it shatters your whole world, and that is scary. Like
Right.
I'm not
Well, just
denying it.
even like, where am I going to live?
Yeah,
And then when you
yeah,
have kids involved, that's a whole other thing. But,
yeah,
but I mean, I always reflect on that because that's definitely the most traumatic. I don't know if traumatic's the right word, but what word are we using here? Disaster. That's the most disastrous thing that has happened in my life. So to date, and hopefully it will be. I feel like
yeah. Hopefully,
I'm much better equipped to deal with disasters now. So I feel like that's still always going to be the biggest disaster of my life. But so yeah, that's my go-to when I'm thinking about that. But the thing is, you can learn so much from it.
yes,
But the hard part is, and I did learn a lot from it. But on the flip side, I also had a lot of support.
yes.
And so then you get people who don't have any support or don't have a good support system, or who are surrounded by people who are living in their own drama. And gosh, I don't know how you get out of that, honestly. I mean, it's easy for me to say I got out of it, but I had pretty ideal circumstances.
That's a really good point. Like both of us were very lucky. Like I put a post on LinkedIn ages ago about my mental health after my marriage broke down.
Yeah.
And that was enormously hard. But I did have so many people there to help me through it, guide me through it. And I did specifically think, like, what do you do when you have like no social support?
Yeah.
And maybe the answer to that question again is just like we need to be kinder to each other. We need to connect with each other. We need to properly support each other because everyone's going through pain. And yeah, like having no one there to kind of guide you through like a complete upheaval of your life, like that's scary. And it can have really, really kind of catastrophic like consequences for some people.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah.
Well, and I guess as another plug I'll put in though is that yes, I did have support, but I also knew when to ask for help. And I think that's a big part of it. Like some people are so afraid to ask for help that, and just if their ego gets in the way or whatever. And so then you disconnect from the people that you need to support you. And then you stay in that where you pick up, you either keep or pick up your old habits again, because what else are you going to do? It was just you, and you're relying on yourself, and that's all you know, because you can't change by yourself. I really believe that you can't, or you can't change without getting help in some way from someone else.
No, I 100% agree.
And like, for example, like I went to a counselor like within a day, 2 days, maybe. I think it might have been the next day after my husband left. I went to see a counselor like right away because I'm like, I can't deal with this on my own.
Yes.
And luckily I lived somewhere where counseling services were available and I had insurance and, again, ideal conditions. But a lot of people wouldn't do that either. So it's like, you do still have to take some personal responsibility, even if you don't have the ideal situation. At some point, you have to take some personal responsibility.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
So that's a tricky thing.
Yeah. Well, that's something I can't reconcile sometimes is people who refuse to seek help.
Yeah.
And I heard about it with that guy Robert Glover was talking about like the nice guy ideology or whatever.
Yeah.
And in that he was saying part of it, like some people's covert contracts are, and that's a plug for the one of our other episodes.
Yes.
So please listen to that episode. But yeah, part of some of the covert contracts are to say I won't receive help from anyone else. I'm just going to do this all on my own because according to this unsigned contract, if I do that, I will get everything I want because I'm not seeking help. So
Okay.
it causes people inwardly to reject help, whether
That's
they,
interesting.
yeah, and it's very unhelpful, you know.
Here I
Like,
go saying interesting again. I don't think I've said it yet today. Maybe.
you haven't. I'm proud of you. I'm really
Nice.
that was great. That did crack me up. What do we have? We had some other. The other word that I was hoping you'd say but you didn't like was engrossing. You'd be like, that's really engrossing.
Yeah, I don't like that word much. But
It's disturbing. Interesting. No. So, but that's I think that's a really important part. I think that'd be a quote that we should frame from Amanda, which is like, I don't think you can change without help. And whether that's talking to somebody or listening to a podcast or
right.
whatever it may be, you just need to seek help.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
and I think too, in this day and age, it's easier in a way. And again, not
Yes.
to make it sound easy or whatever, but at least you can access help remotely. You can access help through YouTube and just go listen to people who have been through what you've been through. At least that's helpful to me. It might not be helpful to everybody. I don't know. But, you know, you don't have to, there's ways to reach out to people without even having to do it face to face.
Yeah.
So, you know, just give it a try. Why not? Exactly.
That's another good quote. Just give it a try because it's
Yeah.
like, well, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Right. But I think it's good that we're talking about it too, because I think it helps people realize, or it's always helped me to realize that other people are going through ridiculously hard times too. And everybody, like, you always think you're the only one sometimes or whatever. And once you realize that you are not alone and everybody has something that they're dealing with or has had something that they have had to deal with, it really helps you be more compassionate for others, but also be more compassionate to yourself as well.
Mm.
Because you think about what would you say to someone else if they were in your position? You know, you wouldn't talk down to them, but so often we talk down to ourselves or expect ourselves to be like strong all the time and not, you know, not ever be vulnerable or whatever.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't expect that from someone else if they were in your position when you're going through
Yes.
disaster.
Well, I think, yeah, that self-compassion is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to practice because
It
I think
is.
we are built to be incredibly critical on ourselves. But I think it is like if you stumble and you do the wrong thing or you go back to the old habits or something, don't beat yourself up
Yeah.
because it makes it doubly painful. It's to sit back and say, oh, I'm frustrated that happened. I forgive myself because I'm just a human being. What can I change to stop that from happening? But I think that'd be the biggest thing, self-compassion and love
Mhm.
to others, like genuine love, I think.
Right.
And, you know, that can sound really like airy-fairy or whatever. But
Right. But it's so true though.
yeah, like you know, we've almost out of time, but like I spoke to, this is probably why Amanda and I are doing this podcast still, right? Because when I first spoke to Amanda, I think before we did any episode, we were on a call for like an hour or 2
Yeah.
hours, like a good chunk of time, right?
Like the very first time we talked. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was because, like, I don't know, from my perspective, I felt a connection straight away because
Yeah.
I felt like I had an authentic person who was like, here, let me be vulnerable and like be myself, you know, and we just like, it was like, cool, instant, like just chat.
Yeah.
And I had another one of those catch-ups recently with someone, I won't mention who it was. It was just surprising, I think, because
That's
it's
cool.
so rare to have people that you're like, wow, I instantly really am enjoying this interaction because I just feel a connection, like a sense of shared vulnerabilities. And yeah, so I just think we need to find that because so many like interactions are really transactional, you know, it can just be like,
true.
how was your day? Yeah, it was good. You know, just, you know, really generic transactional thing.
Which is okay sometimes, but that's a good plug for the episode we did last week.
Yes.
So go back and watch that video.
Correct.
Because in that one we did talk about like attracting the right people into your life. So it sounds to
Yes.
me like you're attracting the right people into your life, because of course I'm one of them, but
Exactly.
but apparently I'm not the only one. So, but that, no,
She's
that,
like,
but darn it, I got knocked off my stool. But, but no, but that is awesome. But that is really proof that you are starting to attract the right people in your life.
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
See, it's
it's a very.
interesting. Yeah.
Oh no! See, it's infection.
All right. So, are we ready to wrap it up, or
We are. We're over. So yeah.
you want me to wrap it up?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So we appreciate you taking the time to watch or listen. And if you would be so kind as to subscribe to us wherever you're taking this in, subscribe, like, comment, all the good stuff, because that helps us get in front of the algorithm gods and move up the ladder a little bit in their eyes. And that's what we're really trying to do, so we can get out to more people. And again, you can also go over to Coffee and give us as little as $1 to help us keep this thing going. You can get in touch with us through LinkedIn or cheerstonotsettling@gmail.com. And I think that's about it. So for now, we would just say cheers to not settling.
Cheers to not settling.
Take care.
Bye.